Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video. In this one I'll be going through how I made Wonder Woman's God Killer sword from the film Wonder Woman. So starting with a plank of a balsa wood, or balsa wood, however you pronounce it. I bought this piece of wood from Riot Art and Craft here in Australia, and then I just traced with pencil the outline of the sword shape roughly. So that includes the handle and then a pointed tip, obviously. So just using a utility knife to cut this out. So that's the basic shape of the sword there. And then I cut out some rectangle strips from this thick, quite thick foam. So it's not a squishy foam, it's quite a thick foam, and I got it for free when from a past convention last year. So also using that foam to create the dragon pieces that curve around the sword. So just freehand drew those and then cut them out, and also just matching it up to the sword to make sure it lines up nicely. And then to create the very sleek edges on the sword, I trimmed off the edges to make it very slim. Yeah, I'm not good at describing things, but basically what you can see here, so just trimming down the edges to make it more sword-like. So this was actually quite time consuming. You can see all of the wood shavings on the side there, and then going in with some sandpaper, and that's just to soften the edges so they're not they won't give you splinters or anything, but all of this will be covered with foam anyway, apart from the edges of the sword, so I had to make sure that those were nice and smooth and soft, yeah, for safety reasons, and also it looks a lot better when it's all sanded down. So that's the finished piece of wood cut into the sword shape, and now to move on to the dragon, well, I think it's a dragon, or two dragons, a two-headed dragon handle thing. Yeah, so I found this pattern online. I'll see if I can find it and link it in the description below, but I did alter it a little bit since the pattern was, I don't know, it was a little bit weird in that it was a very short sword and very wide, so I did change it up a bit, but the general shape of the dragon heads, I don't even know what they are, snake, dragon, some sort of mythical creature. I used that as a guide, and also the bottom of the handle, which is, I guess, the tail of the dragon, and then I cut this out of some craft foam, like kids EVA craft foam or something, also from Riot Art and Craft, and then I did the exact same thing out of some more foam, yeah, and also out of the thick foam as well, so the really thick black foam, I cut out the same piece. So I did all of this twice, so I had 2 green pieces, 2 purple pieces, and 2 black pieces, and this is to build up the handle of the sword, so it's not so flat, as you can see here. Yeah, so here I'm just showing how all the pieces will fit together. At this point in time, I really had no idea what I was doing. I was just going with the flow and seeing what worked, and this seemed to work, so that's a good thing. And then I ended up cutting off the rectangle part for the purple pieces, and then sort of stretching out of the foam a bit to mold it over the black piece of foam. And then for the actual sword blade, I used some of this pink foam, and then stuck that down the center, and also fixed up the edge piece and matched it up in the center where I didn't have enough foam to extend over the length of the sword, and glued down all of those pieces. And then here you can just see me gluing on the final pieces on top, so this includes the purple cover over the top of the dragon heads, and then just removing the hot glue as I went along if there was any hot glue that was going over the edges. So that's that. And then finally cutting out some of this green foam and wrapping that around the handle of the sword and gluing that all down. And where I needed to extend the piece, I would just glue it down as normal and try and arrange the pieces so that the point would match, and also the little purple pieces on the bottom of the handle as well. So that's the sword, the base of the sword done, and then I filled in the gaps using this foam clay from Lumin's workshop. So I received this foam clay as a free gift when I went to a past convention. So I've never used foam clay before, and it's really cool actually. It's a little bit weird and strange, but yeah, it was actually really fun to work with. And yeah, I just used this to fill in all of the gaps on the sword and make everything nice and seamless. So that's all the gaps filled with the foam clay, and you have to let that dry for 48 hours. And then with an X-Acto knife, this X-Acto knife is like $2 from Kmart, I started scoring in the details on the dragon heads. So yeah, no particular pattern or anything, just scoring it to make it, give it texture. And then for the bottom of the sword, I ended up covering it all with the foam clay, just a thin layer of foam clay to, I guess, make everything smooth. And then I did the same thing for the heads of the dragon, so put some foam clay there to make the heads be a little bit raised above the rest of the sword handle structure. And then I ended up not liking the way the handle of the sword looked, so I covered that all up with some foam clay. And the reason why I did this is because the foam clay I found is really easy to score and give texture to, so yeah, that's the reason for that. And then I also wrapped some foam clay around these very thin long strips of the pink foam, and then wrapped all of that around the handle to give it that raised swirl effect. I have no idea what to call it, but basically what you can see here. And then I scored in all the detail along the handle, which I didn't film, but I did do, and I also wrote some, or scored in some random Greek alphabet letters and things along the length of the sword. Then I gave it all a coat of black acrylic paint, let that dry, and then gave it a coat of silver paint, you just saw there. And then I mixed some gold and brown paint together and went over the sword handle. So I tried to keep it quite rough, so the black would show through still and give it that antique worn effect. So that's just one layer of gold paint, and then also repeating that on the other side of the sword. Yeah. So that's one layer of gold paint on the handle, and then I ended up going in with another layer, but this time I only focused on the very high points, so that raised swirly bit and the dragon heads, just to give it more life. I don't know, it looked cool. And I decided that the sword needed some extra dimension and colour. So I went in with some silver paint mixed with black paint and some Mod Podge of some sort, and I just deepened the center, down the center of the sword, so that would allow the, you know, the what's it called, the inscriptions to show through a little bit more, and also deepened the edges and the what do you call them, the like the grooves, I think, the grooves in the sword. Yeah, just to give it more of a worn effect, or like the sword is quite old and antique. So that's the finished sword. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out my Instagram, it's alicia.estelle, and yeah, so this sword works with all Wonder Woman costumes actually. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and until then, see you next time. If you want to check out more of my stuff, do so now. Anyway, bye!